start this year off. I'm going to put my chair up a little bit. I'm going to start this year off talking about a new method that I'm going to start implementing a little bit within the community. And I'll share the visual model of that method shortly. But really, it's about three things. It's about regulating the nervous system, reprogramming the subconscious mind, and then healing suppressed emotional trauma. And this three-step process is really something that I've been working on over the last 5 years, right? It's really, I guess, the accumulation and refinement of the process that I've been helping people with. Over the years, you guys probably seen in the Anxiety to Alignment program, there's a bit of a structure, right? You go through these, this 6-week course, and there's these different parts at each part of the course. And over the years, I've kind of explained it in different ways, right? And usually it starts with learning how to control your stress and anxiety first, which essentially is nervous system regulation. And then we go into reprogramming the mind or creating new beliefs, which is really just reprogramming the subconscious mind. And then usually what I find happens is people hit a roadblock, right? Or they get a stuckness, or they feel like they've maybe, had some kind of challenge that comes up. That always happens with every client that I work with, right? Well, usually every client that I work with, they start off, they regulate the nervous system, they start reprogramming the mind, and then they hit a roadblock. And that always happens. So just so you know, if you're working with me, or if you're new or you're watching the replay or anything like this, if you try to work on yourself and you make some progress, but then you hit a wall, just want you to know that that's normal. And I see it with so many people. I experience that with a lot of clients. And that's usually the suppressed emotional trauma, or the suppressed patterns, or the learned conditioning, the learned programming that we have, right? It's really just a suppressed emotional trauma. And so that's the third part. And once you can start to put these pieces together and overcome them and understand this process, that is when I believe you will create mind, body, spirit alignment. And really you start to become a conscious creator. And so that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. It's this new kind of method that I've been thinking about and putting together in my mind for years, but it's kind of taking form this year, which I'm really excited about. Like I said, it's not actually new because it's kind of what I've always been teaching, but it's just a new way of representing it. So I'm super excited to share this with you guys. I'll just share my screen now, and I'll actually just walk you through it a little bit better. So bear with me a second. Another thing that's important to note is that you have to start taking action in alignment with the new identity, which is this identity of being a conscious creator. You have to start to take alignment with that new identity. So this is really the method. You guys might have seen, I put it on my Instagram stories yesterday. I'm going to start talking about it more, but really the first thing that people need to do when they come into this work is regulate the nervous system, reduce the stress and anxiety. From there, we start to reprogram the subconscious mind and change the belief systems. And then from there, we can start to heal the emotional trauma. And then we create this mind, body, spirit alignment, become a conscious creator. It says here, break through recurring life patterns. So you've really got to develop, through this process, you're developing much stronger self-awareness as well, right? And to break through those recurring life patterns, you've really got to be able to become aware of when you are repeating the same patterns over and over again. And then you have to choose a different approach. You have to actually choose to do things differently. I was on a Q&A call last night, and one of the women on the calls, she has recently had a bit of a breakdown to break through. So she was saying that, she messaged me last week, one of the girls in the community, she was saying that she was just, having this panic attack, and she was coming at me with these questions of why am I back here again? What do I do? Where do I start? What's going on? I can't believe I'm back here again. So she's kind of made a lot of good progress. Like I said, happens. She started implementing the routines. She reduced her stress and anxiety, regulated her nervous system, started changing her beliefs, and she saw a lot of progress. And then she had a panic attack, and that's the pattern, gets triggered again, and she's back to square one. Right. So that was a breakdown. And I kind of told her a few different things. I said to look at this experience that you're having and kind of just ask yourself in journaling, why is this happening? Why haven't I broken through yet? And also another one, another great question to ask yourself if you're finding yourself stuck in recurring life patterns is, how is this benefiting you? So this is a really kind of confronting question to ask yourself. And this is something that I told her to consider. I said, how is having this panic attack actually benefiting you? And what I mean by that is, for example, some people will continue to play out patterns because it means that they don't have to change. They might not have to have a hard conversation, right? They might not have to actually change certain aspects of their life. They might not have to, actually embody their true self. Sometimes we continue to like create these problems for ourselves because it means that we don't have to change. It's like an easier or safer option, or really just a more familiar option. So if you do notice yourself in these recurring life patterns, then it's like, okay, well, how is it benefiting you to be in this pattern? For example, I can just share my own story. Like years ago, we had just a group of friends that really weren't a healthy group of friends to have. And it took me so long to get away from those friends, and get away from my behaviors that I used to do when I was around those friends, because it was benefiting me to be friends with them, because it means that I didn't have to have a hard conversation or leave that friend group or be lonely because I wouldn't have friends. So actually being friends with them, these group of friends that I used to drink with and do drugs with and all this kind of stuff that I didn't want to do, and I told myself I didn't want to do them, it was so hard to leave that friend group because the being in that friend group was benefiting me in the way that I could just continue to, have friends and feel connected, and it means I didn't have to actually communicate like and have hard conversations. So it was benefiting me because it was a safer, easier, and more familiar situation to be in. So I don't know if that resonates with any of you guys, but this is another reason why we can stay stuck. And if you notice that you are feeling stuck, that's something to consider. It's like, well, what's the benefit of actually staying stuck? So anyway, this is this is the kind of model that I'm going to talk about over the next 3 or 4 School of Consciousness sessions. So the next 4 weeks, right? And today what we're going to talk about is really regulating your nervous system. So reducing stress and anxiety fast, right? This is so important, right? Regulating your nervous system is got to be one of the most beneficial skills that you could have in 2025 and beyond, right? Because we live in just such an overstimulated society, and there's so much pressure to like do stuff, to do more, right? We've got a million different devices. Like I've got 2 in front of me right now. I'm using the phone to video myself and the computer to talk to you guys, right? Some of you guys might be wearing like a technologically advanced watch, like an Apple Watch or something like that. I just got a normal one, it's just a Nixon, it's a surf watch. But anyway, you get the point, right? We have so much technology around us. I go downstairs, there's a TV there. My wife, she's always on her phone. Like we've just got so much technology around, and we're living in such a fast-paced environment and society that it's just we're not slowing down. And then you wonder why anxiety, depression, ADHD, even diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia, all those kinds of mental diseases or like brain diseases, let's just call them, brain issues, are present. It's because we are just too fast. Like our minds are going too fast and we're too unregulated. Like we're not able to slow down. So with regulating the nervous system, I talked about this last night on a call with the boys, or the Q&A call. It wasn't all boys. There was a couple of girls there as well. But I spoke about this. So I'll see if I can share my whiteboard from last night. And you guys are going to see my really horrible diagrams. But one of the guys asked like, what is the what is the nervous system? Like, what does it mean to regulate the nervous system? Because he said, I see people talk about it on Instagram all the time, like they're talking about regulating the nervous system and things that you can do to regulate the nervous system, but he didn't really understand what it was or what it means or what it is. So just to kind of give you guys some super basic and oversimplified diagrams and understanding, I want you to know this is oversimplified, right? I'm really simplifying this, but you've got the brain here, right? This circle, and then you've got the spine, and that kind of comes out into your nerve endings in the body, right? It doesn't actually look like that. And what I mean by this is like the parasympathetic is not on this side and the sympathetic is not on this side. But in your autonomic nervous system, you've actually got, I think you've got 3 different modes, but the two that get talked about the most are really this parasympathetic and the sympathetic, right? And so to understand these, you've really got this parasympathetic, which is like your recovery state, your rest and digest mode. And then you've got your sympathetic state, which is like more of a heightened state, right? This is like your fight, your flight, your freeze. Now, both of these are very healthy and normal to have, right? It's great that we've got these things. We need them both. But what the problem is when we have chronic, unmanaged stress, we can end up being out of balance. So for example, we might spend too much time in our sympathetic nervous system, right? Or in the sympathetic mode of our nervous system. So we're kind of in this fight, flight, or freeze mode most of the time. We're in a heightened state most of the time. Think about anxiety, depression, right? ADHD, those kinds of things. You're in a heightened state, right? And so it's kind of like lost our ability to regulate means to kind of be in balance, to return to balance. If we are unregulated or dysregulated, it's like we're too far over on this side and we're having trouble going over to this side, right? If you guys have a dog, if you guys have dogs or animals, right, you know that a dog can go from lying on the ground in the lounge room, totally rested, to when the door opens or someone comes to the door, it gets up and right, starts barking and going crazy. And then it can very easily just go back to resting on the ground after that, right? So it's moving between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. It's doing that really easily. And animals do that, right? Another example would be like you're a cheetah, right? A cheetah in the African safari wilderness, right? Wilderness. And you're kind of hanging out in a tree all day and you're just resting. And then you get hungry. And so you go down your tree and you go and you sprint after a gazelle and you kill a gazelle and then you bring it back to your tree and you eat it and then you go back to resting again, right? This is like a healthy functioning nervous system, right? It's easily able to move into this sympathetic fight flight like mode where it's heightened and it's ready to go, it's alert. And then it's easily able to move back into a parasympathetic, which is like a resting and digesting mode of the nervous system, right? So it's easily able to return to recovery. Now, this is something that humans are kind of losing, right? And we're kind of like losing it. We're losing our ability to rest and recover at a macro scale, like the wider population, right? It's kind of losing its ability to chill, essentially, to relax. And so what we really need to learn how to do is really bring ourselves back into balance, bring ourselves back into this recovery mode. So one thing I want to suggest for you guys, if you haven't already, a great book to read is this book here. It's called Radical Responsibility. It's by a guy called Fleet Maull, who is a meditation teacher. And he actually speaks about this, the nervous system a lot, and the brain and emotional triggers and amygdala hijack and chronic stress. So what's happening, I'll show you this little diagram real quick, right? I don't know if you can see this, but I'll read it out to you. This is the autonomic nervous system, right? When you're in the parasympathetic branch, the relaxation response, right? Your breathing rate is slower, right? Your heart rate is slower. Your adrenaline is down. Your cortisol is down. Your blood pressure is down, right? Your metabolism is down. Your blood sugar is down. Your pupil dilation is down. And your sensory awareness is more relaxed as well. When you're in the parasympathetic or the resting mode, your cognitive processing goes up. Your executive functioning goes up, right? Your creativity goes up. So when you're rested, you're thinking more clearly and more creatively, right? Concentration can go up when you're relaxed. Immune response goes up when you're relaxed. And digestive functions goes up when you're relaxed. So when you're in this parasympathetic mode, your obviously relaxed, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your cortisol, all of that is down. And your creativity, your conscious thinking, all of that is up, right? Your immune response is up, recovery, digestive function, all of that goes up. So those are the benefits of being in this recovery state. But most of us are not in the recovery state, right? And if you're prone to anxiety and stress and mental health issues, ADHD, those kinds of things, you're most likely living in this sympathetic branch, which is the fight or flight stress response, right? When you're in the fight or flight stress response, breathing rate is higher, right? Heart rate is higher, cortisol is higher, your pupil dilation is higher, and your sensory awareness is higher as well. And then what happens is your cognitive processing goes down. So your brain function goes down, your creativity goes down. You can't think creatively. Your immune response gets suppressed as well, and your digestive function gets suppressed. So some of those really essential things like creative thinking and recovery and immune response and digestive function all are lower when you're in this heightened state. So now imagine that you're in this heightened state most of the time. Your body's not able to do basic functions like digestion, recovery, clear thinking, right? Creative thinking. So this is why regulating the nervous system is the first thing that you have to work on, or the first thing that I work on with clients when they come and work with me, right? Regulating the nervous system. Because if you can't think creatively or you can't think clearly, right, you're fucked, basically, right? There's no point in doing self-development work if you can't think creatively, if you can't think clearly, and you can't even imagine a better future. And sometimes that's the case for people who come and work with me, right? They're in a state where they just can't even imagine what it would be like to live a better life. And that is just showing me signs that they're just so far out of balance that they can't even think creatively. So just highlighting that as a problem, because that is a problem. And this is why regulating the nervous system is the first thing that we need to do. We need to learn how to find that balance, because when we learn how to find balance, we learn how to recover and we learn how to rest, then our creative thinking goes up, right? Our conscious thinking goes up, our executive function goes up, right? Now, just another little diagram on one of my really shitty diagrams on what's really going on here in the brain. So you've got this very average diagram I've just highlighted here. But then you've got over here this other really average diagram that I've got. So this is the brain, right? And then there's these two other circles which are kind of highlighting different areas of the brain. So up the top here, so this area of the brain is like the prefrontal cortex or the neocortex. And this is really the area that's responsible for your critical thinking, your creative thinking, like the conscious and logical thinking, your executive function, all those kinds of things. And then down the back here, you've got the limbic brain. And this is kind of really around the survival of yourself and your emotional self. It's also a very powerful part of the brain. There's a bunch of other scientific words that you could put in here. This is not, like I said, I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially this back part of your brain is the survival part of your brain, the emotional part of the brain, right? And so when you're in a heightened state, right, so the sympathetic state, fight, flight, freeze, all of the brain activity, or a lot of it, is going back down into this emotional survival mode of the brain, right? And that's why you can't think creatively. When you're in this sympathetic state, right, the heightened fight or flight response, a lot of the brain activity is going down the back here into the limbic brain, into the emotional brain, and the survival brain, right? So you're really just acutely aware that you need to work on survival. And so that's why you don't need to think creatively, right? You're not thriving, you're just surviving, right? When you're in this sympathetic state, you're not thriving, you're just surviving, right? And so this is the importance of regulating the nervous system, because when you learn how to regulate your nervous system, which I'm going to give you some tips for when we get out of this, right? Once we get out of this whiteboard here, once you learn how to regulate your nervous system, you can actually start to balance your brain out, right? Like find that homeostasis, really, which is the body's natural balance and ability to adapt, right? When you regulate your nervous system, you get to bring your activity back up into the critical creative thinking, the conscious logical thinking, the executive function, right? And that's when you can really thrive. So regulating the nervous system helps us to go from survival to thriving. And that is why it's so important. And that's why it's the first thing to work on as well. So you might be wondering, okay, well, how do I regulate my nervous system? I'm going to give you some really basic tips here, right? Breathing exercises are one of the best things. Obviously, I'm a mindfulness meditation teacher, right? Got my little certificate up here that says Josh Holiday, mindfulness meditation teacher. And mindfulness meditation is great. And if you've never tried meditation or if you're new to meditation, right, a couple of points to understand is really the first thing that you can focus on is your breathing, right? Mindful breathing. So I'm going to give you one simple tip on how to breathe better, and that is to breathe into your diaphragm. So diaphragmatic breathing. So your diaphragm is a muscle in your stomach around this area, right? And I want you guys just with me right now to do some diaphragmatic breathing. And all you need to do is breathe in through your nose and just become aware of where your breath is going. So before we do anything else, just take a few mindful breaths in and just become aware of where your breath is going as you breathe. So is it already naturally going down to your belly and your diaphragm? Or is it kind of getting stuck in your chest? The first thing that we're going to do is just become aware of how we are breathing already. So take a few breaths in and just become aware of where your breath is going. Right? And once you've got some awareness around where your breath is going right now, I want you to just type it into the chat box or the comments below and just let me know, where is your breath going? Is it going into your belly or your diaphragm, or is it shallow and it's in your chest? Beyond chest. Cool. Yeah. So if you're breathing into your chest, it's fine, right? Like the first thing that we're doing here is just developing the awareness of, oh, okay, maybe I'm breathing into my chest, right? And great, that's good. Now we have some awareness of where you're breathing, right? Carly says belly, awesome. What we're going to do now is we're going to be intentional about breathing into our belly. So take a few more breaths and focus on actually breathing deeper into your belly. So in through the nose, breathing into the belly. And it's almost like you can imagine the belly opening as you breathe in. And then let go. Breathe in. Breathing into the belly. I was doing this exercise last night, right? And I noticed that my breath goes straight to my belly. Now, the reason why is because I've trained myself to do that, right? It's natural to breathe into your belly. You know, if I look at my daughter, who's a 2-year-old, and I watch her sleep, she breathes into her belly, right? If you look at your dog and you watch them sleep, you'll notice your dog probably breathes into its belly, right? So it's natural to breathe into your belly. But if you've been living in a heightened state for a long period of time, maybe quite stressed out, quite anxious, then it's likely you're going to be breathing into your chest, which is fine as well. It's okay. We're just developing awareness. And what we're going to do is train you. This is regulating the nervous system. Train you to breathe into your belly. So that's one thing, diaphragmatic breathing. And just notice, how do you feel even now from just doing a few breaths into the belly? Just tell me in the chat box below. How do you feel after now just breathing into your belly for the last 30 seconds to a minute? Do you feel any different? Yeah, calmer and more present. There's 2 reasons for that. Firstly, mindfulness or awareness. You became aware of your body. And secondly, you intentionally breathed into your belly. So those 2 things alone, very simple, have made you feel more calm and more present, Brian, which is awesome. Now, the next breath I'm going to give you is straw breathing, right? Or if you've been working with me for a while, you might have heard me talk about the double exhale. So with this, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start with an inhale, breathing in through our nose into the belly. But on the exhale, we're going to breathe and we're going to imagine that we're breathing out through a straw. So through pursed lips, imagine that you're breathing out through a straw. And just do a few breaths like that, breathing in through your nose into your diaphragm. Breathing out through your mouth, imagining you're breathing out through a straw. So pursed lips. And for the next few breaths, what I want you to do is breathe in through your nose into your belly. And then when you breathe out through your mouth, lengthen the exhale. So count your breath in. Maybe you breathe in for 2, 3, 4 seconds on the inhale. And then as you breathe out, lengthen it by 2. So maybe you breathe out for 4, 6, or 8. Yeah, relaxed, calmer, longer exhale. This is called the double exhale, right? So we're doing the diaphragmatic breathing on the way in and the straw breathing on the way out. Doubling the length of time between the inhale and the exhale. 2 in, 4 out, 4 in, 8 out. And just finding a rhythm of doing that for the next 30 seconds or so. And you'll start to notice that you feel calmer already. You feel more regulated. When I do this with my coaching clients, if I have a client on a one-on-one call who I can tell is quite stressed or quite anxious or quite nervous, this is the first thing that I'll do before going into anything else, before making them talk about anything, I will calm them down. If I notice that someone is heightened, stressed, anxious, in a high level state, heightened state, first thing I do before talking about anything is I just calm them down. Just do some breathing, just regulate. Because remember, if you are not calm, like if you're in a heightened state, you can't even think clearly anyway. You can't think creatively, and your executive function is out the window. And there's no point in even talking because you're just going to be confused and not clear. And so what's the point? So this is why regulating the nervous system is the most important thing to do first, because only once you've regulated the nervous system can you then think creatively. Can you think consciously? Can you use your executive function to actually, make a clear plan? So that's regulating the nervous system. This is one of the first and most important things that we do. All right. Next week in the School of Consciousness, I'm going to talk about reprogramming the subconscious mind and why your beliefs are also very important, right? Fun fact, I'll just give you a bit of a teaser. I was reading this book last night, Radical Responsibility. If you want to go get it because it's really good. And there was a study that was done, a little science note here, study that was done on the impact of people's beliefs about stress in regards to health outcomes and death rates. And the research indicated that people who reported high levels of stress, only the ones who believed that stress was bad had negative health outcomes. People who believed that stress was good had better health outcomes. So 2 groups of people, right? Both experiencing high levels of stress. One group believed that stress was good, and one group believed that stress was bad. The people who believed that stress was good had positive outcomes. The people who believed that stress was bad had negative outcomes. Crazy stuff. So this is why having working on your beliefs is also very important. This is what we're going to talk about next week. All right. So that's it. If you want to learn more about what we've talked about today, then there's a new free training on my website. So you can go to the website, www.mindlaunch.com.au. You can watch that free training. It's just on my website. And then if you want more help, you can book a discovery call with me below the video. If you are already a client, then that video is in our portal in the Anxiety to Alignment course under the welcome video. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you found it helpful, and sounds like everyone's feeling a bit calmer and more present, a bit more relaxed, calmer, longer exhale. So take these breathing practices with you, use them throughout your day. As you saw on this call here, we didn't even need to close our eyes. We didn't need to do any meditation, right? We were just being conscious or mindful of our breathing, and that was able to help us relax and feel calmer and more present. And that in turn is going to help us think more creatively. So if at any point in the day you're starting to feel stuck, confused, frustrated, right, whatever it is, just remember that you can just do some simple breathing exercises, connect with your body awareness, and then that alone, within 30 seconds to 1 minute of some conscious mindful breathing, will help you come back into balance. So that's it for today, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you soon. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.